He designed a stone coffin, a huge architectural object that could cover an entire nuclear reactor. He said this kind of system is not necessary for the troubled power plant in Fukushima. Takeda, who is with the Nuclear Safety Research Association, says the problems at the Fukushima No. 1 power station will not develop into a critical situation that requires such a stone coffin. He said that in the accident at Chernobyl, nuclear fission inside the reactor not only did not stop, but accelerated. He said it was like stepping on the accelerator instead of the brakes. Takeda says that at the Fukushima power plant, the operation of the reactors was automatically halted safely when the earthquake struck, judging from what he saw on TV reports. He says the system is designed to stop reactors when an earthquake is detected, and that the system is installed at all nuclear power plants. Takeda says the troubles at the Fukushima plant began when the cooling systems failed. He says various chemical reactions occurred because of the retained heat. He says each reaction was caused by a small amount of energy, and the whole situation gradually became worse. The size of the accident is clearly different from the size at Chernobyl. In the accident at the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant in 1979, the temperature of the core rose just like the reactors at the Fukushima power plant. Takeda said the accident at 3 Mile Island occurred while the reactor was still in operation, while the troubles at the Fukushima reactors did not begin until after all operations were halted. He said that's why the initial energy was much smaller. However, Takeda pointed out that the situation following the initial trouble seems to be worse than what happened at 3 Mile Island. Takeda says a big difference is that 3 Mile Island's trouble occurred inside the reactor, and the fuel rods were damaged, and the reactor suffered a meltdown. But he says safety devices attached to the reactor were working normally. Takeda says the trouble involved in the reactor's pressure containment, but other things were working fine. Takeda says that at the Fukushima No. 1 power plant, electrical systems near the reactors became submerged by the onrushing water, causing them to lose almost all of their functions. He says that's why they cannot manipulate the control systems, motors, or valves. He says these systems did not work the way they were supposed to. Asked what needs to be done to end this crisis, Takeda said they must employ all means possible to cool down the reactors. Takeda says the most important thing is to cool down the reactors. He says they must do all they can to pump water into them. He says the heat of the nuclear fuel is generated by the process in which radioactive materials created by nuclear fission are changing into something else and emitting heat. That's why the heat will decrease as the days go by. He says the last resort is to pump in seawater, the procedure that is currently underway, but he says the situation will end eventually if they try everything they can think of.
The world is paying close attention to the ongoing events at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear plant.
From ABC News, this is a special edition.
Word tonight of an issue at a nuclear site which at the very least could be uncharted territory, raising the question of a nuclear power meltdown.
The United States is showing particular interest in what's happening. That's because the US has more than 100 nuclear power reactors in operation, the largest number of any country. The US Nuclear Watchdog Agency, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, will be sending 10 experts to Japan in response to its request for help.
It is a serious situation, certainly in Japan. They have asked for additional types of equipment that will help provide water and other resources to ensure that the reactors continue to be cool.
Some European governments are reviewing their nuclear policies. Germany has decided to freeze for 3 months, a decision the government made last fall to extend the life of existing nuclear plants. 2 of the country's long-serving nuclear power plants will now be shut down. German Chancellor Angela Merkel says if a country like Japan with high nuclear safety standards can't prevent the current crisis, this will have major global implications. China, rather, has been pushing for a plan to build a number of nuclear power plants. China says it's stepping up monitoring for radiation from Japan. A Foreign Ministry spokeswoman says Chinese authorities are carefully watching how the situation at the Japanese nuclear power plants develops and are stepping up monitoring of radiation levels across China. Vladivostok in Russia's Far East is close to Japan. Officials there usually measure atmospheric radiation levels once a day. They're now keeping an hourly watch. Officials in Taiwan have increased food safety inspections. Taiwan has decided to check the radiation levels of agricultural and marine imports from Japan that are harvested or caught in Fukushima Prefecture or its vicinity. An official with the Taiwanese Atomic Energy Commission says it will soon step up inspections of food imports from Japan to see if any of them are contaminated with radiation. The nuclear plant disaster in Japan is sending shockwaves around the world.
Amid all the gloomy news we've been reporting, here's a slightly brighter story. We often hear of the life or death importance of rescuing survivors within 72 hours of a disaster. However, near miracles do happen.